You cannot have happiness in your life without being grateful for what it is you're happy. The peace, the love, the joy, the happiness, it all is derived from the place of gratitude. Hey, what's up? This is Brad with Be Real. Hey, I wanted to talk about something different today. One thing I would like to say before a little infomercial, if you know anybody that would like to come on and tell their story on a podcast, or you know somebody that their mission in life is to other people, help other people or lift people up or whatever, message me, because I really like to talk about it. I really like the people come on and have a guest come on. It's way easier than you think it would be. It ends up just being a conversation. It's pretty enlightening. It's encouraging to the people that come on the podcast, and it's encouraging for others to either hear your story or hear some good. Everybody needs a little good news, which is what my messages today is about, and it is on encouraging. And it kind of like kindness sometimes can start to be erased from our culture, because people kind of get, absorbed with themselves and, what can I do for myself and how can I make myself better? But I really want to talk about encouragement today and the power of encouraging, others. And before I forget this, let me tell you something. We personally are responsible for our happiness. We personally are responsible for our motivation. So when I say encouraging, you got to remember, we have to take time to encourage ourselves before I get into kind of the message today. It is extremely important to encourage yourself. And partly because I said before, you're going to remember failure 4 times longer than success. So if you're going to remember failure 4 times longer than success, you need to spend 4 times more energy reminding yourselves of the good that you've done and the things that you've accomplished. So encouraging, when I say encouraging, that comes to encouraging other people too. So, but also too, everybody in society wants to get an advantage. If you're in sales, you want to get the advantage. If you're a manager or a leader, you want to get the advantage. And right away we start thinking of hard skills and skills that we can do or things that we can add to our toolbox that would make us better leaders or managers. And when I say leaders, I'm talking about a parent. Don't forget, if you're a parent, that is probably the most important job you have. And so how do you become a more effective parent? How do you become a more effective friend? How do you become a more effective leader in the workplace? And I'm telling you, man, it is encouraging others, coming alongside them, helping them out. And one rule before I get into this deal is it's the 4-to-1 rule. And this is very important. And I'm telling you, I really had to work at this deal. There's a rule that I've heard more than one time that you should say 4 positive things to somebody before you say anything critical or corrective. So that same thing with kids, because I'm telling, and I know because I've been there, as leaders, it becomes real easy to identify the things that people are doing wrong. And if you constantly are in a meeting and you're constantly, all you do is say what they're doing wrong, if you're with your kids and all you're doing is saying what you're wrong, if you're with your significant other and all you're talking about is what they do wrong, 1, you ain't going to be there very long. And 2, that becomes a very negative situation. And this is my opinion on this deal. This is a battle between good and evil, whatever you want to call it. Because good wants you to find and look and focus on and manifest the positive in people. The bad wants you to focus on the negative, because focusing on the negative does nothing for you and it does nothing for them. So don't forget, before we get started on this, the 4-to-1 rule. The cool part about encouragement is it's a 2-way street. And so when I talk about encouraging, right away everybody's like, oh man, it takes a lot of energy to go encourage. Really, it doesn't. If you'll go do it, like I've been through some really tough times in my life, all self-imposed. But I found real quickly that in some of my toughest days, if I would get up from my desk, go out onto the workplace and find people that I could talk to or find people that I could tell were kind of in a worse state than I was. And if I'd stand around and encourage those, man, when I walked away, I was in a better place. So it's the old deal, as you lift others, so too are you lifted. But it's a 2-way street. So keep that in mind, that, like there again, I say, a lot of times we get focused on the getting. And I understand that it's just kind of human nature. But it goes back to the giving. And you don't have to take anything if you give enough. You don't have to take anything if you give enough. And so if you focus on that, it ultimately ends up filling you up and filling up who you are. Um, the the another thing about the encouraging others, it's in my personal opinion, it's the second fastest way for me to change me. The first fastest way for me to change me is gratitude. And so if I get into a situation where I'm envious or I'm anxious or I'm angry, I try my hardest to focus myself on grateful and gratitude. And, like I've said this before about my wife, she's amazing at it. When I can finally verbalize something I'm anxious about, before I can get done telling her what I'm anxious about, she's spouting back to me 3 or 4 different things that happened positively the last time we were in this situation. So, what's the moral of that story? Amber sits around and thinks about and replays over and over and over everything that good happens. Brad looks for all the potholes. so, the quickest way, if your life's kind of off the rails a little bit, or you're not in the best place or whatever, the quickest way to get that back on is to forget about yourself and go help somebody else out. Go lift somebody else out. See, the part of that deal too is when you're in not such a good place, you've got energy going into something. Most of the time, something you can't control. Most of the time, it's something that's way far down the road. And so, what ends up happening is this energy is kind of going in this wrong direction. And when you focus that energy onto helping somebody else, it ends up reciprocating back to you, and you stop. You can't. A human mind can only think of one thing at a time. And so either you're thinking about all the crap that's going wrong in your life, or you're trying to help somebody else with some of the crap going on in their lives. And when that happens, I'm telling you, it comes back, and it comes back and blesses you. It comes back and lifts you up and helps you out. The other thing too is basically you're really, when you're encouraging somebody, you're giving people hope. So what I'm saying is everything in encouraging that because I said it was a two-way street. Anything when it comes to encouraging that you're doing to try to fill somebody else, it ends up filling you. So like when you're encouraging people, you're giving people hope, which in return gives you more hope. When you're encouraging people, you're motivating others, so which ends up motivating you. When you're encouraging others, you're taking them from maybe a sad situation to a happy situation, which ends up making you happier and more joyful in your life. The other thing I was talking about was before is, everybody's heard me talk about relationships and how important relationships are. And you want to strengthen a relationship, go encourage somebody else. No matter what your feelings are, no matter what you feel like it might be not the best situation or whatever, go encourage other people, because most of the time, 9 out of 10 times, you're going to find out that what you thought about that particular situation or relationship is not as bad as what you think it was. So if you take the time to go encourage other people, that was a big thing in the beginning of my wife Amber and I's marriage. We spent a lot of time kind of picking at each other and what other person did wrong. And when we totally changed our focus onto who can outgive the other one and who can out encourage the other one and who can try to think of things to do for the other one, it was crazy how our marriage completely changed. It completely changed. The other thing is it builds by encouraging others. It actually builds trust. And trust and loyalty is a huge thing in this world. And so as you encourage other people, you strengthen trust and you strengthen the relationship. It also reinforces a positive mindset. It's kind of tough to encourage people and for you to not get into a better mindset. It gives emotional resilience. So by encouraging other people, hey, the greatest thing, and I said earlier, the greatest thing that you can give somebody else is hope. And by encouraging others, you're giving other people hope, right? But at the same time, you're also strengthening their resilience, because for everybody has hills and valleys. And I personally don't think that we were built to be in the hills, and I don't think we were made to be in the valleys. So everybody kind of has the valleys, right? And so when we take time to encourage other people, then actually what you're doing is you're giving them hope and you're sharing hope with them. The other thing that's great about encouraging is you'll be surprised. Let me say I am. When I am kind of intentional and I go do public speaking and, I really make it a mission of mine to, to encourage a big group of people or a group of people or whatever the situation is. Yeah, I feel like I hope somebody heard it, it helped somebody. But I'm telling you, man, you will be surprised at just the slightest when the Spirit moves you to encourage somebody else. You never know where those people are. You never know what the state those people are. I'm just telling you, I've had it come back to me years later where people walk by me and go, "Hey, man, can I just tell you something? 2 years ago, you walked by me in the same hallway and you told me I'm going to make it. It's going to be okay. And I was going to do this or that, and I completely changed my mind, and you completely helped me in that situation." You just never know. And there is a rippling effect of encouraging others. If you in your house, I always like to talk about house and business. In your house, if you don't feel like everybody is positive and encouraging each other and lifting each other up, which trust me, I've got 5 kids, I've got relatives, I've got 3 brothers. My wife has, 2 brothers and sisters. Did I get that right? She has 2 brothers and a sister. So I understand the dynamics of it. But if those situations are, when everybody gets together, they're not that positive. Let me tell you, the quickest way to fix that is fix you. And because it is a rippling effect, and you will be amazed at how these voids and caverns in these relationships tend to shrink when you get a bunch of people encouraging and helping each other and being positive to each other. It also, I told you that one time, the level of my happiness and the level of my success is totally contingent on the strength of my relationships, which is true. It is 100% true. So think about this. The quickest way to strengthen a relationship is to help and encourage somebody else. And they don't have to be, you know what, you even somebody that's in the greatest place going, a little bit of encouragement is fuel added for other people. So encouraging people strengthens relationships, or encouraging people lifts and elevates other people's happiness. Don't forget this part. I just said the level of your happiness and success is contingent on strengthening relationships. So if you want to see more success, both in personal, professional, spiritual, monetary, go encourage other people. I'm just telling you that when you do that you will be mind blown. And I'm going to tell you, as soon as you kind of make this a priority, it will be crazy how those kind of negative thoughts, I don't want to do that, or I'm scared to do that, or whatever. That's when the time you should take the biggest step. That's the time you should make the biggest step to encourage people. But I'm just telling you, if you, just like giving, if you will spend the majority of your day trying to figure out who you can give to, and if you'll spend a large majority of the rest of the day trying to figure out who in your life could probably use a little bit of encouragement, you'll be blown away at how your life and the people around you's lives, completely changes. Let me tell you another little caveat. I sitting here thinking about that. I've tried to be good at this, encouraging others. I've tried to help other people. And, what I realized too is when, a year ago when the company I was working for decided to go a different direction, I feel like for me, the reason I had so many people reach out, I had so many people text. I mean, and they've been doing it for a year, but I feel like the reason for that is I planted those seeds for the last 2 decades of encouraging other people. And so when it was time for me and I needed, and there was a little bit of phantom, in my life, there was a little bit of lack in my life, then guess what? Here comes the encouragement. Here comes the help. So you're really not giving as much as you are storing up for later on, for you're going to need it. Hey guys, thanks. I hope you got something out of this deal. I hope you make this a priority. If you know anybody else that would like to come on a podcast or tell their story, or somebody that has a great story, please reach out to them. Tell them to message me. I'd love to have you on, and I'd love to sit around and have a conversation. Have a great day. Be real.